So when I first started this channel, I sort of had the idea that I was going to run down some of these like unresolvable issues we see between people, and I was going to do it with natural language, not to get too wrapped up in categories and people are saying that this is word salad or that's word salad. I don't disagree, but I think that a lot of the time the people say that they themselves just don't understand what they're reading, and that's the accusation. Make it simple for me to understand. And I know about 50% of the people on YouTube read below a 6th grade level, but I don't want to appeal to everybody necessarily, but I also don't want to unnecessarily alienate people. So I tried to use just like everyday language and running down some of these unresolvable issues. I was so confident in the beginning that it could be done, that if we just focused and really pressured the issues with natural language, we'd be able to eliminate some of these existential divides. I mean, and the fear was always that what PhD philosophers are doing in their categorizations and definitions, their clinical language, is exactly that. It is what happens is when you try to face it with natural language, you really try to face it, you spin off and you end up in endless hair splitting and qualification. And I'm starting to feel like this is the case more and more. The channel, I'm going to continue to try to attack it with natural language and see how far I can get, to brute force, to bully it into a situation where we can get resolution between opposing viewpoints with basic language. I understood that it might be the case that, the all of academic PhD level clinical language is trying to do this. They're not being clinical for no reason. This is built up over time by people starting at natural language, trying to attack this unresolvable line or situation between opposing sides. They've spun off to try to qualify and use the clinical language to identify, and they've used, like if you've ever seen the philosophical like calculus, it's nothing I would ever be able to talk about in a YouTube video, or that I even understand myself or want to get into, to make the humanities side of life mathematical. I prefer to leave it as artistic, but that doesn't mean I want to keep it unfocused or not relevant, because you're keeping it artistic is just another way of saying keeping it stupid, right? I feel that we can build a strategy of sort of relaxing the absolute focus of the clinical language of academic philosophy, and we can build not a middle ground, but just like a ground that's it's elevated over, the 50% that read below a 6th grade level, but it leaves breadcrumbs for them in case they become interested in trying to be philosophers. They can follow the breadcrumbs, and then perhaps they can be PhD level clinicians themselves later. So when I had a video that got a few views, not many, I mean few for me, the other day, and one of the comments that I removed many comments. I remove any comment that's not productive or that's just rude, or I remove those kind of comments, but there's plenty of people that make productive comments. But one of them was a comment that had the general theme that ownership, taxes or theft, that kind of thing, and that peace was boring, or people coming together was boring. Civilized society is boring. So I don't understand those that see a peaceful, flourishing society and think to themselves, that's boring. The reason that I don't understand is not the reason that those that think that way would want to believe in their own minds. In their minds, they think that I don't understand because I'm a boring person. And I couldn't possibly understand their need for excitement because they're strong and they're focused. I do understand, and it's ridiculous because this person is under no obligation to remain safe themselves. Your obligation is basically just not to hurt other people while you take on risk yourself to be exciting. All you have to do is not include non-consenting parties in your chaos. Go free climbing, go skydiving, go base jumping. Freestyle moto. Like, I'll come and watch you. I love freestyle moto. These are all exciting things you can do where you put yourself at risk and you don't put anybody else at risk. This is why I have no idea why people who say a peaceful, flourishing society is boring. You are implying that you haven't the imagination to handle your own needs effectively, or you're saying that you enjoy the suffering of others, or some combination of those two things. Those are both internal issues with you, the individual, and it's tragic that you seem to indirectly want others to pay for them for you to enjoy yourself. It's sadistic. I think the reality at the root of it is extreme, that there's an element of human agents that are caught in this masturbatory, parasitic cycle of exclusion and hate. They don't want to rise above it into a peaceful situation where they themselves seek out risky situations only for themselves to satisfy themselves. That's just not as enjoyable to them as watching somebody they hate suffer. The other that they hate so much is nothing but a physical symbol for the monster that they have built up in their own minds to maximize their masturbatory sadism. This sadistic imaginary foundation is the source of their creativity and cannot be thought of as anything other than pure evil. I know that's like a little bit heavy for YouTube, but I truly believe this is the tragic kernel at the center of human life. Some are hate addicts, and they should be filtered out and separated from those who have overcome more destructive animalistic tendencies, and they can coexist with each other and they can seek out excitement at their option. Like UFC, it's violent. I don't enjoy watching it, but it's consenting people fighting, like things like that. It's all about consent. Anybody who wants to unleash chaos on society, on innocent children and families just because they're bored is a psychopath, okay? There's no middle ground. There's no relativism. You're in this camp of murderers, okay? You haven't killed anybody yet, but the probability that you will is elevated. And that's the way you have to be seen. And people in civil society who are just trying to survive, I'm just talking about at a minimum. People enjoy themselves without risking their lives. If you are in civil society and you're just trying to enjoy your life, you shouldn't have to be terrorized by a small group of people who enjoy watching others suffer. People that are part of civilized society are hated just for being civil. So why should they have to suffer for doing the right thing? I honestly think religion traps people in their animal tendencies, and it draws dividing lines across universality, and religions still can adopt universality within their paradigms, but I honestly think that religion appeals to the animal side of the person, and that's how they get this masturbatory reward centered and dialed, so that it becomes something that's constantly attractive, the opiate of the masses, right? If we can just move these people to a place where they can, and when I say these people, I mean anybody that doesn't want to participate in civil society, whether anybody who has an identity particularity that can't get along with people that are different than them, that are moderated, that all get along with each other, should be separated into places, any place other than the place where people do want to get along and cooperate, okay? There should be a state where people who desire to live this way or have these types of tendencies can go and live with each other, and, they can all destroy each other in that place if they want. There will be no expectation of justice in that place. When you cross the threshold, you know where you are, and that's fair. Here's a few reasons why some agents might not value their own existence in any substantial way, or haven't made the connection that others are fundamentally like them also. Lack of creative or productive output. Not having built or created or contributed to something meaningful can make it harder to appreciate the value in others' efforts and existence. Having side projects that you value or goals which you strive to achieve can create a value in life that some might not have. Absence of responsibility for others. Never being dependent upon means missing the perspective shift that comes from having someone else's well-being in your hands. For me, one of the strongest drivers of the desire for peace at our option is the absolute horror at the idea that something might happen to my family. Every day I hear about entire families being bombed out of existence, and there's not an ounce of who I am that doesn't think there's absolutely no reason why that should have been them instead of me. There's no reason that means anything that is enough to justify their death over mine. It's fucking tragic and sad. This understanding's a constant reminder that life is not a game. We shouldn't just be casual with tragedy and catastrophe. People that do that are detached, disassociated, a limited brush with mortality, not having experienced the death of someone close, a serious health scare, or other reminders of life's fragility and finite nature. Having any kind of health issues or even facing your own death through ongoing issues can have a humbling effect. A lot of young people haven't faced any kind of test to their mortality. Anybody who thinks they have the right to choose somebody else has to die is a killer, unless the situation at hand has truly been handed down by deterministic circumstances that are beyond the control of that person. So, just to talk about some people in government, you can't just casually send people off to war and then tell them, stop complaining while you sit in an ivory tower pointing your finger. Nobody's even close to that important. And so people that assume that kind of power are given that power by systems that we built. But those people are no more special than you or I in any way that would matter enough to give them any kind of special power to tell people to go and die. And especially to be casual about it and tell them to not complain about it. That person is a human imposter. Some situations you can only choose against bad options, but that's not created by the person in a lot of cases. There's thousands of trolley car problems out there that test these different situations. There's a universal justice that we express in the moment between individuals, but there's also a historical justice that plays out simultaneously. It's basically the desire to maintain symmetry in the moment and the desire to right the scales of symmetry over time. Just the fact that symmetry can be realized means that some will attempt an asymmetrical approach. Some live with an everything is permitted mentality, and we're also permitted to use everything against them. Innocent families should not have to suffer just because some can't isolate their destructive tendencies to themselves, or worse yet, they get off on the suffering of others. If you guys like this kind of philosophical subject matter, help us out by liking the video and subscribing to the channel.